in the second half of the session after a vociferous fall in the midday. Both Sensex and Nifty recovered over 1% each from day's lows. Sensex recovered about 850 points from day's lows, and even Nifty rebounded over 300 points from day's low. What led to the recovery of the markets was the PSU banks that saw buying in the second half, and with that led to Bank Nifty recovered quite sharply by about 1,000 points from day's low. So that brought in some optimism in the markets. This comes on the day of the financial services weekly expiry as well. Apart from Bank Nifty, what did well was the Nifty Metal Index. That was a standout performer. That rose over 2% amid hopes of additional Chinese stimulus measures, which is expected to be announced later in the week. India Wix, that also saw a cool off by 3%, and it has settled about that 16 odd levels. Yatin, it looks like the investors quickly moved on to the buy on dip strategy from the initial sell on rise strategy.
Absolutely. I think after last week of sell-off, Monday also looking weak. Finally, today we saw some pullback in the markets with Nifty surging above that 24,000 mark to close in at 24,200. Obviously, the move was led by metal stocks as well as PSU banks and private sector banks. But look at mid caps also. Both the benchmark of mid cap and small cap indices saw 0.5% gains coming in. And the advance decline ratio of the market also improved significantly over the day to end close to 2:1. So two advances for every one decline in the markets. Obviously, if you look at stocks in the PSU space, be it the frontline stocks, be it a few NSE 500 companies, second half saw some good amount of recovery. Obviously, tomorrow is when the exit polls come in the US today. US votes for the presidential elections. So it's a tight competition or a tight election between Trump as well as Kamala Harris. Hopes are that Trump should win this election, but yes, we'll wait for the exit polls as well as the entire polling which happens today. Obviously, the ballots are open till November 20th, so the overall timeline for the actual result declaration will be somewhere in December. But yes, you could probably see the early trends tomorrow morning, post which we could see some reactions for the Indian stock markets as well, along with the global benchmark indices.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, as you rightly pointed out, that the markets have been starting to hope for a Trump victory. So we saw metal names that started to buzz in the session. We saw some of the metal names dominating the list of Nifty 50 pack. The likes of JSW Steel, Tata Steel, Hindalco, all of them saw about 4% up in the trade. Apart from that, Bajaj Auto and Axis Bank, that also dominated the Nifty 50 pack. What did not do well in the Nifty 50 was the likes of Coal India, Adani Ports, Trent, Asian Paints, and ITC. Yet then, for the broader markets, that also saw an underperformance in the initial session. Later on, it recovered, rose about 0.5%. So, what were the hits and misses from the broader indices?
So, despite a weak quarter, Gland Pharma surged 14% in trade. The stocks like HFCL, MRPL also surged by 7 to 10% intraday. So, the good comeback coming in for these few marquee names in the mid-cap space. We also have Adani Energy Solutions surging 5% in trade. There was a Nuama report which suggests that the company will be included in the upcoming MSCI, November review, which is due day after tomorrow. Stocks which not do well were Torrent Power, Policy Bazaar, Amara Raja Batteries after a weak set of numbers. So, 3 to 4% losses coming in for all of these stocks. Ola Electric, by the way, fell 7% in trade today to close below the IPO price of 76 rupees a piece. So, that stock continues to underperform the markets. Stocks like Aditya Birla, AMC, Deepak Fertilizer, Nalco, Suven Pharma have hit a fresh 52-week high in trade today. So, select mid caps continue to do well.
All right. But before that, let's take a look at the top names and the top movers and shakers of the market. Metal stocks that emerged to be the outlier in this bearish market. We saw the shares of JSW Steel, Tata Steel, Hindalco, all of them dominated the Nifty 50 leaders pack. They rose over about 4% in today's trading session. Now, what kept these metal counters buzzing? It was the hope that the China will be hashing out some stimulus package later in the week. For the time being, China has refrained from unveiling a figure for the long-awaited stimulus package. But majority of the experts, they are pointing out that it would be determinant on the U.S. presidential elections outcome. Both Trump and Harris, they have pledged to go tougher on Beijing, but Trump specifically, he has been vocal about imposing stringent tariffs of up to 60% on all the Chinese imports to US. So experts, they are expecting that Beijing would adjust the size of its stimulus depending on the outcome of the US presidential elections. Yatin, with the battle counters buzzing and a bigger stimulus package, uh, if Trump was elected, do you believe that the markets have already started to price in a Trump win as well? And also or do you believe that the metal counters have what it holds for a fundamentally strong win in the later of the near term as well?
So I think a lot of things do not necessarily depend on the Trump victory, but I think China stimulus is something which will play an important role. Obviously, the market expectation is that the China stimulus package will be slightly bigger moving ahead, and hence so the rally in metal stocks, and also a few of the data points in China, especially the steel PMI. A lot of other data points have been on the positive side or on the recovery side, so that is probably supportive for metal stocks. But moving from metals to the stock which was in focus today post earnings, which was ABB, one of the top losers in the FNO space, down 3% when it ended, dipped as high as 5% in trade after a dismal set of quarterly earnings and slower execution. If you talk about Nomura, they have a neutral call on the stock with a target of 8260. Now, if you look at the quarterly numbers, there was execution slowdown, especially for larger orders, and the cost also was slightly higher, because of which few brokerages said that they have missed the EBITDA margin expectation as well. If you look at the order inflows for the quarter, they stood at close to 3,340 crores, up only 11% year on year, when the market was probably expecting a higher number. Now, if you look at the conference call, ABB management is confident that the business momentum will continue for the next 3-4 quarters. Order inflows are getting better, especially the larger orders are getting a bigger share. If you look at the execution, it is yet to pick up. Now, typically when you do a large order, it takes time. There are some delays because of which the billing cycle also gets impacted. So probably a lot of things will trickle in the coming quarters, especially the next quarter, according to the management. And the motion segment order book was also slightly slower in the quarter, probably the reason why the stock was languishing in trade. Yesterday also was in pressure. Today also ended the day lower by nearly 3%. So ABB expectations were running high, some bit of disappointment, turning that into a stock profit taking day.
Yeah, cautious management commentary coming in for ABB India. We have another stock in focus, that is your Maruti Suzuki. The shares were up 1% in today's trading session as well, after it disclosed its first overall EV, the e-Vitara. Now, this mid-size SUV is expected to make its entry in India early next year. For now, it has already been unveiled in Italy and is expected to cost between the range of 20 to 25 lakh rupees ex-showroom per price. Apart from this, Maruti also clocked highest ever monthly sales this festive season. It sold over 2 lakh crores in the previous month. SUV vehicles, they particularly saw 19% year-on-year sales jump in the October month, while exports saw a substantial growth of 50% year-on-year. Yet then, the automaker, they have reported a Q2 miss, but the stock has been defying it. Do you expect it to remain in the top gear going ahead as well?
So I think for Maruti, one thing is quite clear that Q1 was slightly painful. There was inventory buildup. They have undertaken some production cut to exist the dealer inventory, which they're confident of achieving. Obviously, the festive season, we saw some 10 to 15% kind of a growth rate for most of these larger companies. But the small car segment is slightly slower, according to the management. But moving ahead, if you have the electric vehicle launches, which are slated, to be showcased in the Auto Expo somewhere in February, that is one thing we'll watch out for. And most importantly, if you look at the company, they are hopeful that moving ahead demand should be stable, obviously in lower single digits, but yes, something on the growth front. Exports also are expected to do well. Valuation wise, a lot of things going in favor of Maruti. But yes, this is one of the market performing stocks. Depending on the market volatility, I think the stock will take some shape in the coming days to come. But as of now, things are quiet, and the quarterly numbers also were slightly disappointing.
That's right. Coming to our next stock in focus, that is your PNG Health. That stock soared about 8% in today's trading session, and it also hit its highest level in 3 years. What kept the stock buzzing in trade? That was after its healthy second quarter numbers. Uh, in Q2, the company's profit climbed about 26% year on year to 82 crore rupees, while revenue also rose modestly by 2% year on year. If you look at the operating level, the company's EBITDA also jumped about by 29% year on year, whereas EBITDA margins that expanded sharply by 730 basis points year on year. The management has also indicated some optimism for PNG Health and said that they want to keep investing its initiatives that address the evolving needs of both consumers and healthcare professionals. So, yeah, then after a fairly muted Q1, PNG Health has done a commendable Q2. But how are the valuations looking at this point of time for PNG Health?
I think PNG is one of those multinational FMCG companies where valuations are always a question or probably slightly premium to the entire FMCG basket. But yes, sometimes when you have a better performance in a quarter, stock is not that liquid, so we get a big jump, for the share price. But yes, these are old MNC companies which have created a lot of wealth for long-term investors, and they continue to do well, even in slower markets where the FMCG growth looks slightly challenging.
All right. So yes, we will be with that. We've come to an end of this edition of the closing bell. But we will be watching out in the U.S. elections. It'll be underway tonight, and we'll be watching out how it pans out for the markets, for the U.S. markets, and of course for the Indian markets tomorrow. Whether or not we'll get a formidable Trump or a Harris win, that we need to watch out. But until then, we are signing off, Yatin and me. But do stay tuned to moneycontrol.com for all the news updates and market insights.